I never thought I would live to tell this story. Honestly, even now, as I sit in the comfort of my home, with air conditioning humming softly and a cup of coffee in my hand, it still feels unreal. But every time I close my eyes, I can hear the rustle of the jungle leaves, feel the suffocating humidity pressing against my skin, and most of all, I can see those glowing eyes in the darkness, staring at me. The eyes of a panther. This is the story of how I got stranded in the jungle, how I fought against nature itself, and how I somehow managed to walk out alive after facing a predator that could have ended my life in seconds. It started as an adventure. Isn't that how most survival stories begin? I had traveled to South America for what was supposed to be a 2-week trip. I was always the kind of guy who loved hiking and camping, but nothing extreme, mostly trails in national parks back in the States. This time, though, I wanted something different. Something wild. So I signed up for a guided jungle trek. The plan was simple. A group of us, led by 2 experienced guides, would hike deep into the rainforest, spend a few nights camping under the canopy, and return with stories to tell. The first few days were exactly what I had hoped for. The jungle was breathtaking. Imagine towering trees with leaves so broad they could cover your entire torso. The air smelled like wet earth, flowers, and life itself. Birds of every color flitted above us, monkeys leapt between branches, and somewhere far off, you could hear the haunting cry of howler monkeys echoing like a warning. But the jungle, as beautiful as it was, had a way of reminding you just how small and vulnerable you really are. On the 4th day, everything changed. We were moving through a particularly dense section of the forest, the kind where vines seemed to reach for you and the light barely touched the ground. Our guide walked ahead with his machete, hacking away at the foliage, while the rest of us followed in a line. Somewhere along the way, I made a mistake. I stopped for just a moment to adjust my backpack. When I looked up, the group was gone. Not just out of sight, but completely gone. The jungle swallowed sound and vision so quickly it was terrifying. I called out, but my voice was muffled by the thick walls of trees and vegetation. I tried to retrace my steps, but every direction looked the same. Within minutes, panic set in. You have to understand, the jungle isn't like the woods back home where you can just follow a trail or use landmarks. Everything looks identical, endless green, twisted roots, vines that seem alive. And the sounds, God, the sounds. Birds screeching, insects buzzing like static in your ears, and sometimes, the eerie silence that made the hair on my neck stand up. I had a small survival kit in my backpack, a knife, a flashlight, water purifier tablets, and some protein bars. Not much, but better than nothing. I decided to keep moving in one direction, hoping I'd either find my group or stumble onto a river. Rivers usually lead to villages, or at least a chance of rescue. When night falls in the jungle, it feels like someone just slammed a door shut on the world. One moment it's dim, the next, it's pitch black. The sounds grow louder. Frogs croak, insects whine, and somewhere in the distance, something large moves through the undergrowth. I knew I needed shelter. I found a spot between 2 thick trees, cleared the ground as best as I could, and made a crude lean-to with branches and leaves. I didn't have a fire, it was too damp, and I was terrified the smoke would attract the wrong kind of attention. That night was the longest of my life. Every rustle felt like danger creeping closer. I didn't sleep, I just sat clutching my knife, listening, waiting. The 2nd day, I continued moving. By now, I was dehydrated and exhausted. My clothes were soaked with sweat, and leeches clung to my legs. I tried not to think about them as I pulled them off and kept walking. That's when I noticed something unusual. Tracks, large paw prints pressed into the mud, fresh enough that water hadn't filled them yet. My stomach dropped. I wasn't an expert, but I knew what I was looking at. Big cat tracks. Later that day, I heard it, a low growl, distant but unmistakable. Something was following me. From that moment on, I was no longer just lost in the jungle. I was prey. By the 3rd night, I was weak. I hadn't eaten more than a single protein bar. My water supply was almost gone, though I managed to collect some rainwater in large leaves. I set up camp again, this time in a slightly more open area. I was sitting under my makeshift shelter, flashlight off to conserve battery, when I heard the sound. A soft crunch of leaves. Slow. Deliberate. My heart pounded in my chest. I gripped my knife tighter, straining my ears. Then I saw them, two glowing orbs in the darkness. Eyes. The panther stepped into view, silent, powerful, black as midnight except for the faint shimmer of its coat in the moonlight. It was bigger than I ever imagined, muscles rippling beneath its sleek body, teeth flashing as it opened its mouth in a silent snarl. I froze. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but I knew better. You can't outrun a panther. The cat circled slowly, keeping low, watching me. I raised my knife, though it felt laughable compared to the predator in front of me. When it lunged, everything happened in a blur. I dove to the side, feeling the rush of air as its claws slashed where I had been sitting. I scrambled to my feet, heart racing so hard I thought it would burst. The panther growled, a deep, guttural sound that vibrated in my bones. It stalked me, every muscle coiled like a spring. I shouted, loud, primal, trying to make myself seem bigger, scarier. For a split second, it hesitated. That was all I needed. I grabbed a thick branch from the ground, brandishing it like a spear. The panther lunged again, and this time, I thrust the branch forward. It wasn't much, but the sharp end jabbed its shoulder, making it snarl and retreat a few steps. It paced back and forth, eyes never leaving mine. I shouted again, slamming the branch against a tree, the sound echoing through the night. Finally, miraculously, the panther backed away. It melted into the darkness as silently as it had appeared, leaving me shaking and breathless, barely believing I was still alive. I didn't sleep that night either. I couldn't. Every sound made me think it had come back. But somehow, I made it through until dawn. The next day, with adrenaline still surging in my veins, I stumbled onward. And then, by some miracle, I heard voices, human voices. I pushed through the foliage and found myself face to face with a group of local villagers. They took me in, gave me water, food, and eventually helped me get back to civilization. That was months ago, but the memory hasn't faded. If anything, it's sharper than ever. People ask me how I stayed calm, how I fought off a panther with nothing but a stick and a knife. The truth is, I didn't feel calm at all. I was terrified. I just knew that if I gave in to fear, I'd be dead. The jungle taught me something I'll never forget. Nature doesn't care about you. It doesn't hate you, it doesn't love you. It just is. And if you want to survive, you have to respect it, fight for your place in it, and never, ever give up. I don't know if I'd ever go back to the jungle. Maybe one day. But if I do, I'll never forget the night I faced the eyes in the dark, and lived to tell the tale.